Hey everyone, I am Steve McLaughlin, Head of Data at EPON Technologies USA, and this is the inaugural episode of The Data Pour, where I'm going to sit down with data leaders while we are enjoying a craft beverage, either beer from a local brewery or delicious coffee from around the area. And oh, there's my first guest now, Chris Mowry. Thank you for joining me, sir.
Thank you for having me, man. It's good to see you.
You too. All right, shall we head in and have some beers?
Most
Thank
definitely.
you, sir. Chris, you are working at CIBT. Tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your role.
Sure. So I am the VP of Data Engineering and Strategy at CIBT. We, for the last 30 plus years, provide travel and visa immigration services for more than 3/4 of the Fortune 500 companies. Most recently, we launched this new consumer product for our everyday traveler called Intriva. I think that is a huge win for all travelers, specifically now when you see the complexities of traveling from country to country. Folks just want an easy way to get all their stuff done when they're traveling. So it's a super exciting entry into that space.
Yeah.
And it's a
cool.
It's
I want to dig more on that. It's a great service. I'm doing some world traveling myself in just a few days, and it is complicated. So, Chris, why don't we jump into our first beer, and then we'll dive in on some more questions. So, today we are at the Veil Brewing. I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second, but we're going to kick this off with our first beer, and this first beer is called Jackson Flavor.
Jackson Flavor.
Right? Jackson Flavor. It's a Mexican-style lager. It's got brewed with sweet corn. What else do you know about it? It's the lowest ABV of the day. I know
that's
that.
That's right. We're starting small and going big, right?
That's right. Here we go. All right.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers. That's pretty good. I like that.
That's pretty.
That.
It's pretty smooth. It tastes like just a
smooth. You could definitely sip on this all day. What is it? 5.9%. There you go.
That's
you
right.
can sip on this all day.
Start light, right?
That's right. We're in the fall right now, but on a hot summer day, a nice cold glass of this probably go over really well. It's pretty good stuff. Let's talk about where we're at. This is the Veil here in Richmond, Virginia. They opened in April of 2016. The name is actually, do you know the name? Do you know the origin of the name? See, I've always thought it's this really cool reference because like the veil sounds mysterious and shadowy.
When you look at the picture, it looks like it's throwing away a tissue. That's what
it does. The logo does kind of look like throwing away a used tissue. So the name comes from a process in brewing a particular type of beer. I'm talking like I know what I'm talking about. I just read this on the Wikipedia.
Yeah, it's like a skim. It's like a skimming of the top.
Yeah,
of the
it's like the skim on the top, and it has another name I forget. But the brewer, Matt Tarpey, heard this term used by Italian winemakers, and it's a very similar concept, and they refer to it as the Veil. And he became really kind of enamored with that concept long before he opened the place, but that name stuck with him. So he said, hey, the name is already chosen for me, and that's why. So kind of cool.
Yeah.
Interesting brewery. It's right near the EPON office, so we get a lot of use out of this place. So most of these beers are very familiar to me, but we'll talk some more about those. So.
I mean, that's one of the great reasons to even come down here, right?
That's right.
When you invite me over to the office, I'm like, sure.
Yeah.
It's hard to pass
You
up.
know, an office invite also means a beer invite, right?
Oh yeah, 100%.
That's a long-standing tradition.
Yes, for sure.
All right, Chris, let's dig in a little bit. Tell me about why data. Why are you working in data right now, 2023? What's compelling about that to you?
Data's been in our lives forever, right? And I go back to, since we're talking about beer, back like the 90s, right, 98, and wanted to learn more about beer, but the only way you can actually do that is go to a bookstore, buy a book. So all the data lived in books, and found a book on beer written by Michael Jackson. And
not the Michael Jackson.
No,
yeah.
no. This
different, not a craft brew fan, as far as we know. Maybe.
Yes, maybe.
Yeah,
but
okay.
Definitely different Michael Jackson.
Right.
And just found his book, buddy and I, and found a local beer shop in Japan, and we started just buying them, and the way we captured it is we highlighted say we had it, and now you fast forward.
This was untapped before.
This was like pre-electronics, right? That you can carry around, and when you fast forward to now, you have Untapped. It's just, you pull up the phone, it's just a wealth of information. So we can pull up this beer right now and see what people feel about it, what it's rated, what it's made with, and it essentially becomes your diary of, how you're feeding your liver, right?
Right.
Like in terms of sheer
Don't
numbers,
share it with
right?
your doctor.
That's right. So I think that's, and you look at, it's not going to go away. We talked, right? Data is doubled like 1.2 times a year. There's over 44 billion plus transactions daily that happen with data. So I think it's a part of our growing culture. We live, it's us.
Yeah, and so much has changed even the last couple of years that, data is no longer this arcane concept, right? Like my mom knows why data is important, right?
Yeah.
That, like 5 years ago, my mom thought I was a computer tech. Like, it doesn't make sense to a lot of folks. Tell me about the evolution of how you came to your role, because previously you were more on the software development side, right?
Yes, I'm pretty old at this point. I think it's
No, you got like you got at least 10 years left.
See, that's on the backside of the career. But I've been in all different spaces in technology, and it really started, back in the '90s in the Marine Corps, just being a financial analyst and good old-fashioned green screen, producing financial reports for officers and senior enlisted folks.
Chris, I love that you were a Marine, but still a nerd. Still found a way to be a nerd.
I wanted to work on computers, and the recruiter didn't lie. He just put me behind a computer working in accounting. So that's
like a monkey's paw. I want to work on computers. You got it, kid.
Yeah, that's right. But I found my way. I had opportunities to run their networks and do some coding. So that's
cool.
And really just throughout my journey, I think it's to where I am now, where I'm leading up the data practice. For a global company, which is pretty exciting.
Right, that's awesome. Cool. Why don't we move on to our second beer, and then we'll get a little more philosophical. We need a few more drinks in us before the philosophy really starts. Yeah, breaks down. Yeah, that's one way to put it. This is Crucial Taunt. It's a Citra Ford IPA. It's 8%. The name, interestingly enough, is a Wayne's World reference, which I missed, even though that's one of my absolute favorite movies.
So how'd you catch up to the name?
Just Wikipedia. Yeah, I do a lot of stringent research for any project, really.
Comes back to data, right?
That's right. The data's out there. Here, cheers on that.
Cheers to number 2.
That's right. Party on, Chris.
This is one of their classics.
Yeah, this is a classic. So they had this since day one. Opening day back in 2016.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. Like 7 years ago, there was nothing here, and now
I know.
You get not only this beer, but they're open in so many different places.
That's right, yeah. Interestingly, a couple years ago, probably like 8 years ago now, so pre-pandemic, I saw some interesting research data about breweries in America, and specifically how they thought there was still no end to the market cap, which feels funny in Richmond because there's a craft brewery on every corner. But the idea was it's been such a major popular industry. So it's really cool. It's really cool to see, and the Veil is one that's been a staple here in Richmond for a long time, and this is one of their staple beers.
Yeah, and I think with the beer industry, I think they make it an event. When you come here, you can bring your kids. You got juice boxes now. They wine, liquor. So it's more of experience, and then the people that really come for beer, they get what they want to.
I'm gonna lay a pro move on you and segue from that concept, which is how you draw people into something like craft beer, into data and the challenges with organizational adoption, and change management is such a tricky thing. What are some of the things that you've seen be successful in, you can't just build it and people will come, right? You have to be very mindful about how organizations mature around their data management practices.
Yep.
Tell me about some of the things you've seen work, or maybe some of the things you've seen fall flat on their faces.
Yeah, I could say I've been through 5 or 6 like global major transformations, not necessarily all in the data space, but I've seen where you think that you're doing change management, but you're not really figuring out who your users are. Mm-hmm. So you push out a bunch of content and you think you've checked the box.
Right.
To come to find out when you do surveys that it failed, it was miserable. You got a lot of negative feedback. And I've seen it really done well where there's very targeted to users, how they use the system. So
Sure.
an example, moving to like a G Suite, like you have your admins do a specific thing, you have your software developers doing another thing. So you're tailoring your content, your training, the information you're providing them. You're trying to understand how they use the system,
Right.
and that's really that effective change management.
Sure.
And I know we've talked about it here, with what we're trying to do with CIBT. It's ultimately, it starts with our senior executives. They have to believe it. Easy enough. I mean, like presenting a data vision to them, they are all on board. They understand the value. They
Right.
come from different organizations. So now it's just providing them with all the context that they need. It's understanding what our users are, because end of the day, 80% of this is all change management.
I agree.
And the other 20%, it's technical, but I mean, it's, if we don't do the 80% right, the 20% won't matter.
Yeah, I think so many folks in our career probably have a trail of dead projects behind them that maybe technically it was working pretty cool, but it just didn't get adoption, and maybe people didn't see the value, and it's sort of just these littered husks of projects that could have been. And I think one of the biggest things I've learned is it's not just build it and people will come. There's so much that has to be done to actually drive cultural change, to adopt any new paradigm, data management capability, et cetera.
Right. Yep.
That just gets overlooked. And I think technologists can have a tendency to overlook that too.
Yes, because when you look at change, people receive it in different ways. Some people are like, I'm losing my job. Some folks are, well, this is adding more work to my plate. I'm not going to adopt this.
Right.
I don't understand it. So there's a lot of just that initial, this is change, I don't like it.
Right.
And it's like, how do you reach them at their level and communicate at their level,
Right.
so they understand the value, what's in it for them, why does it matter?
Right.
And I think it comes from the top down, and I think it comes from bottom up, like hearing what they
Yes.
need, helping them, right? And
Yeah.
I think if you figure all that stuff out and you're very consistent in that communication, I think it's success is
Yeah.
is there.
I agree. Do you have any good horror stories? You have a project in your past that you're like, oh my gosh, this burned me out. We almost got there. It's a heartbreaker. Anything like that you can share?
Without giving names of where.
Sure, yeah.
where
Keep
I've
it all
been.
anonymous.
Yeah.
We don't want to get sued. I don't want to have people come break my kneecaps.
Yeah, we did an O365 upgrade, and I mean, it went fine, but it fell flat in many aspects of, well, we didn't know what these tools were, what they did for us. Like it was explaining the cloud transformation to folks, right? Because everything was on their laptops, so their desktops. And I just saying, hey,
sure.
like, put this data in here, put it in this source,
Right.
and helping them understand what that was. Again, as technologists, we thought, no, it's technology. You should know how to use this.
Right.
So really,
You're like, it's
just-
obvious. The reason is intrinsic. Just look at this, but that's not how people operate.
Right. So we completely undersold what we did, and we got that feedback.
Right.
But again, I mean, the work was done. The technology was there. There was no way people couldn't use it, because it was
Right.
the tools that you needed to do the job. But it was a lesson learned, going
Sure.
forward, of like, spend the right amount of time building that advocacy, that transparency, and all that change that goes with it.
Yeah. That's good. That's good advice. And on the flip side, is there one project you look back in your career and think, this was my favorite project? This was the coolest thing I've ever done. It had the biggest impact. Something to hang your hat on?
Yeah, I think it's I'm staying with like the core,
Sure.
suite, like G Suite, that application and that change was really drastic for the organization.
Yeah.
And the beauty of it was we created champions of different groups. There was a lot of very targeted training and materials for these groups of people.
Right.
So essentially, you just built through the organization to sell it, and did road shows,
Yeah.
pop-up events. There was a lot of marketing and training and just transparency with it, that we targeted the personas, going back to that, and
Sure.
figuring out like what do they need to feel good
Right.
about the change. And I think that piece of information was pretty awesome, because it really just drove, how quickly it was adopted and accepted,
Yeah.
even though there were challenges along the way. from every person involved, from the leaders who crafted it through the people that were executing, it was just completely well done, from change management all the way through delivery.
That's awesome. And I think I've shared this with you. That's one of the things I admire about you is you're very smart to know, we have to really be thinking about this. It has to be front and center. We have to communicate often with lots of different people. And I think that makes a big difference. It makes a huge difference.
I mean, end of the day, no matter what you're delivering, the user is the one that's going to receive it. So if you're not doing right by them, it doesn't matter.
If you're a brewery serving beer at 1 p.m. on a Tuesday, you got to have juice boxes for the kids because the parents are coming. You got to hear people, right? You got to see them, understand them.
That's right. And folks won't get to hear the screaming children.
That's right.
that we had to deal with. But,
speaking of screaming children, why don't we move on to our third beer? And
I've been hovering over the second one.
Third beer is called White Ferrari. This is another staple of the Veils.
Yes.
It is Citra and Galaxy hops. It's a double IPA. This is another 8%er. I've had this, but it's been many years now, so I'm looking forward to having a sip.
Yes, me too. It's been a long time since I've had this beer. I have to say, like, out of the three, White Ferrari's
I think it might be my favorite so far too. Yeah, that's just fantastic. It's just I love Citra hop forward IPAs anyways. That's kind of the style I prefer.
Yeah, and I think with this one, I think they hit it with fresh hops throughout the process.
Oh,
so
gotcha.
I think that's why it's a little bit more hazy too.
Little hazier. Yeah, it's fantastic. This is a good one. Yep. I mean, it's easy to see why the Veils become so popular. These beers are they're reliable. Every time you get it, they taste the same, and that taste is fantastic. And especially when they first opened, they're pretty different. Not a lot of breweries around here had this style of IPA. So
I mean, there was nobody, right? It was really Hardywood, and then Veil not shortly behind that. And they have a lot of staying power even globally. When I travel overseas and talk to beer people, they know this place. They want beers from here. So I mule beers back to France for some of my beer friends.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
Yeah, when I go see my son, so it's pretty awesome.
There you go. The Veil all the way being drank in Paris.
That's right.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
I mean, there's Richmond beers that show up. One of the craziest things is went to a bottle shop and I found a Licking Hole Creek beer sitting on the shelf. How that got there?
Yeah.
I don't know.
You're pretty far from home, buddy.
Yeah, I think you're a little lost.
All right, Chris, this would not be complete if we didn't talk a little bit about AI. Obviously, we know the last year has seen a dramatic increase in conversations about AI. Culturally, I think everyone's talking and thinking about it. We're seeing everything from cool ChatGPT through deepfake and everything like that. And it's front and center, I think, in a lot of people's minds right now. Some fear, some excitement. Talk to me a little bit about your views on AI, just maybe from an ethics standpoint, or just generally, any ideas you have there. And maybe if you guys at CIBT are talking about it or utilizing it, I'd love to hear maybe some sanitized use cases if you can share.
Sure. I think AI is not going away. I mean, you look last year when ChatGPT came out, I had 1 million users in less than a week.
Yeah. Fastest digital product adoption of all time.
I mean, it's crazy. But I think my perspective, the bad and the good, and starting with the bad, I think it's, can you trust what you're seeing anymore, right? It's that social misinformation.
Right.
You see content come out, it's is that really a real thing or not?
Right.
So I think that's hard. I think it's another, tool in the cyber criminals tool belt, right? I mean, I think it increases, risk for companies in terms of another vector for cybercrime.
Right.
But I think on the good side of it, it's going to change how we live, right? When you look at healthcare, for example, just how it's improving kind of just the medicine and the things that are coming out in that space.
Diagnoses are so accurate. Outcomes are way better in the healthcare space. Yeah.
Yep. And then we look at CIBT. I know you and I have talked about creating an AI usage policy just in prep for when that comes.
Right.
Ultimately, we're not at that stage yet because we're going through that transformation and getting the data there.
Right.
But I can 100% see us using it. When we look at the traveler experience, it's how do we make a very unique traveler experience?
Yes.
Understanding the trends and where they're going. So whatever we're providing them, it's tailored to them.
Yeah.
I think that's I think that's critical.
Yeah, I can see a lot of use cases there. It's really cool.
And when travelers submit all their paperwork, being able to scan that, and see is all this stuff in there? Is it accurate? Are they missing things?
Right.
And at the end, it just speeds up their process. Ensures that they're not delayed in their travels. The other piece too is catching fraud. Right. People are submitting false documents. Being able to scan and see that and catch that stuff up front. I mean, those are to me like 3 easy use cases. But I think as the data develops, and the more the AI stuff comes out, I think it's just going to grow. I don't think it's definitely something we're not going to shy away from.
Yeah, of course. And you're right. Like, those use cases sound incredible. And what about a way to hugely increase a traveler's experience? Because it's a nightmare. I mean, looking at all the different policies of how things cross, different countries and their different policies, and it's a huge pain. And having an AI system that's constantly up to date with things that change and putting things in a way that's easy to understand and follow, that's fantastic.
And I think it goes with that the Intriva platform that we launched, right? It's targeted at the everyday traveler.
Yeah.
But then you layer on AI that I think which will further potentially enhance that experience and help identify what documents and paperwork and things that they need to be able to travel to these places and do it simply, right? Remove the hassle from the traveler in doing that.
Yeah, that makes sense. You mentioned misinformation. Obviously, there can be malicious players doing things intentionally, but I'm also worried about, I've seen how organizations manage their data, and I think people are rushing to implement AI solutions, and that underlying data is often so bad that I'd be a little fearful for some of those outcomes.
Right.
That being said, I suspect that will actually get better in time as well. I think AI will become able to figure out what bad data looks like.
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, what's the next 5 years going to look like in your view?
I mean, it's hard.
You've had enough drinks to answer that now, right? Like, just go, man. Just rant.
It's hard to even go past a year, right? Like, things are moving so rapidly. I mean, I follow just numerous sites and things even on LinkedIn when people are posting, like, hey, did you see, like, we can do ABC, either it's internal AI to like improve just how our workers work, to just the tools and the functions and the applications that are going to be built, on top of this AI. I think it's the models, right? It's like it's only as good as, like you're saying, right, what the data is behind it, and how do you create the counterpoint to be able to check and show like the data is not biased or inaccurate. So I think that's to me, the caution is, can you trust what you're seeing? Because ultimately humans are still feeding some of these.
That's right.
Right. So it's, avoid it from bias, right? And just giving you the wrong answer, what you think is right, and what
because
could happen.
It can give you the wrong answer, but very confidently.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, cool. Oh no, it doesn't care. It's not like, hey, take this with a grain of salt, but I think it's the answer is.
That's right. So I think it's trust but verify. Right?
Yeah, trust but verify. There you go. I love that. Okay, let's move on to our fourth beverage. The fourth beverage is, this is the one I'm probably most excited about. This is fried chicken. This is a double dry hopped, hazy, Citra, Simcoe. What are the other?
All I know is it says it has chicken in it.
Yeah, who cares about all the other stuff? It says contains fried chicken.
Yeah.
Now, I don't see any fried chicken, so I guess it's very finely.
Do you think you'd have like a little layer of like grease on
I was actually hoping for like a wing in my glass. It'd be a little soggy by now.
Like a little celery stick?
Yeah. Oh, like a Bloody Mary, but with a
chicken
hot
bone?
wing. With a chicken wing. All right, let's give this a shot.
All right.
See how it goes.
Cheers. I mean, there's definitely no chicken flavor in
There's no chicken, but there's definitely no chicken. It does have a slightly tastes a little thicker to me. Is that in my head that I'm just imagining pureed fried chicken in there?
I mean, it might have that.
I still think it's got like a slightly I don't want to say greasy because that sounds gross. It actually feels quite good, but it's got like a different mouthfeel. Can I say mouthfeel without?
I mean, you can, yeah.
Well, I did. I said it. I kind of like it. Pretty good.
It just tastes like an IPA. Really, not much.
No, your palate's not refined enough. I definitely taste the fried chicken.
Do you?
No, I don't. I like it though. I like it.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's at least you can say you had a beer with fried chicken in it now.
I would say it's probably my least favorite of the 4 so far.
Oh yeah? I think I'd probably place it just below White Ferrari. I think it's maybe my second favorite. I like it. It's good stuff. Chris, in addition to beer, I'd love to get to know you a little more, share with people. What are some of your hobbies? I'm always interested in this. I'll just selfishly tell you, I think data people come from such interesting backgrounds that lead them to data. I'm sure that's true of every profession, but I'm always blown away by wow, that is a really crazy background. What kind of stuff are you into, man? What do you do?
I mean, I'm pretty basic. I mean, I love to cook. I usually take a recipe. I'll try it by the recipe, once, and then from there I just modify it. I add, delete, and just try to make it my own.
Love that.
I'm into, of course, craft beer.
Yeah, you've been in craft beer for a long time. It sounds like
a long time. It was back when Killian's was cool.
Yep.
And if the older folks will know when the whole red beer craze came out for all this stuff.
I remember that.
And I love to travel. I love to see new places, new people. Cool. Just experience the culture. Of where I'm at. Those are probably, and hanging out with family, the kids.
Yeah. So your son's in Paris, right?
He is. He's in
so cool.
animation school.
Yeah, that's great.
He's on his final year, so it's
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I'm pretty proud of him for taking.
Yeah, that's really cool.
The leap of faith.
What a great story. Yeah.
Especially for an introvert. And taking a pretty big leap.
Yeah, that's great. How long were you in the Marine Corps for?
4 years. I was. I would have made it a 20-year career. It's just. Things just didn't pan out the way that I wanted to, and I had an opportunity to get in technology in Kansas City, and I jumped on it, and now I've had a good almost 30-year run in tech.
Sure, that's cool. All right, well, should we move on to our final beer?
See, this one's
going to knock us out. Yeah, this is why you're going to need a nap afterwards. So.
Well, I mean, that's why we had to save this for last, let it warm up a little bit too.
This is Starve Exhibit E, and it is a blend of a bunch of different imperial stouts. It's 14%, and vanilla and maple syrup, right?
Yes, yeah. This is going to be really good.
I love a stout. I liked stouts long before I liked IPAs. I had to come around on IPAs. That being said, 14% is still a big one.
I mean, it's only 3%, so fluid, so it's not too bad. So
that's really good.
Right. This is the one I've been waiting on.
That's fantastic. My problem with stouts is 3 ounces is about all I want. A full glass by the end, I'm like, ugh, it's very sweet. This is a great dessert. Come into this at the end. 14%, so you're taking a nap. It's a little bit sweet, so it feels like a dessert for your liquid lunch.
Yeah, I mean, try to drink a whole bottle of it.
I don't think I could. I really don't think I could drink a whole bottle of it. And I mean, if I did, I'd be asleep afterwards.
It's good napping beer.
It's a good napping beer. Final conversation topic here.
Yeah.
Thank you. This has been a lot of fun. Advice you might have. You've been in technology for a long time. You've been drinking beer before it was on Untapped. What advice would you give to someone new in the industry, or maybe looking for a change towards data? If you could roll back the clock 20 years, what might you do differently knowing what you know now? Share your wisdom, my friend.
I would say ask questions. Don't be afraid to. I think there was a transformation point probably 12 years ago in my career where I felt either I knew the answer or I had questions, and I wasn't always willing to take that jump.
Yeah.
So I think if you're new coming in, find somebody that you can relate to. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Find a buddy in a sense that, someone that's been in the industry for a while, that it's a safe space, right? Ask questions.
Finding a mentor is so important.
Right.
I mean, I can point back to the person who got me into data, who taught me everything I know about consulting, and to this day, many years later, is still someone I can call up when I need advice. It's so important. It's so important.
It is. And be picky on who your leaders are. When you're young in your career, you just want to work, but the character of your leadership is important. I think it's it drives your ability to ask those questions. It gives you free space to operate. It's stuff that if you don't have a good structure in place, that those things aren't real.
Yeah, completely agree. Chris, thank you. This has been a lot of fun. I appreciate you joining me today. This has been the first episode of the Data Pour. Thank you for checking it out. If you're interested in joining me, please reach out on LinkedIn. Please comment to let us know if you have any questions, thoughts, or concerns. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next episode. So, cheers.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks for having me.